What if a $200,000 drone could erase Russia's $150 million surveillance aircraft in seconds?
Russia thought their most important plane was safe behind layers of radar and missiles, but they were wrong. A secret Ukrainian move just proved that even the most expensive defense can be tricked by a simple drone.
In the war in Ukraine, our colleague puts it this way. Trey Yingst on X saying a Ukrainian operation damaged many Russian aircraft and strategic bombers. Drones emerged from hidden compartments and containers on large trucks before being flown to nearby air bases.
At 10:31, the drone dropped down to fly only 50 yards above the gray winter waves. It was invisible, fast, and carrying a brain that could pick out one specific target in a crowded airfield. This is the story of how a ghost drone slipped through a net of sensors and changed the war in seconds. Black Sea blindness. At 10:26 local time over the Sea of Azov, a single Ukrainian Luty drone was screaming toward a target that Russia could not afford to lose. This Russian Yel-38N aircraft was the only platform Russia had in the Black Sea that could find their new weapon. Satellite imagery from 6 hours ago showed ground crews already removing engine covers. The IL-38N would be flight ready by 1300 hours. This was their only shot to take it out before it got into the air. The clock was already running out. At 10:31, the Luty crossed the Ukrainian coastline and dropped down to 164 feet above the gray winter water. Ahead lay 174 miles of open sea. At 136 miles per hour, the crossing would take 76 minutes. This meant 76 minutes of total silence. The drone's special frame shattered radar energy in every direction except back toward Russian stations. It was like throwing a handful of glitter instead of using a mirror to see yourself. At 164 feet high, the curve of the Earth did the rest of the work. Radar waves travel in straight lines, but the Earth is round. The drone was flying below the horizon, invisible to every Russian radar within 124 miles. For over an hour, it might as well not have existed. The acoustic trap. Things get even crazier once the drone reached the shore and the real danger began. At 11:47, the drone reached land east of Parasko-Atars. It was now 43 miles to the target and only 19 minutes to the end of the mission. The invisible phase was over. Now came the part where Russia had a chance to fight back. 3 seconds after crossing the coast, that silence ended. If you look at a cellular tower outside the village of Stut-Tarovskaya, you will see what looks like standard phone equipment. It is a gray cylinder bolted to the frame about the size of a coffee thermos. Inside are 4 microphones and a small computer. This is Russia's answer to drones that hide from radar. You cannot see what flies below the radar, but you can definitely hear it. The Luty's engine does not care about being quiet. The engine makes a lot of noise like a motorcycle on a highway. In the cold December air, that sound carries very far. Thick, cold air moves sound much better than warm air. The microphones picked up the first traces at 11:47. The sound was faint, but it was much louder than the quiet winter morning. Russia had built microphones sensitive enough to catch a tiny sound from miles away. The computer inside the sensor broke the sound into different parts, like picking apart the notes in a song. It matched the sound against a list of known drones. The computer decided it was a drone in less than 2 seconds. One microphone gives the direction, but it does not say how far away the drone is. It is like knowing someone is shouting from the east, but not knowing if they are in your yard or down the street. The drone was moving fast, but it had no idea it was being watched by ears on the ground. Russia has over 200 of these sensors along the coast, spaced about 2 or 3 miles apart. Within 8 seconds, 3 more microphones reported in. A computer program figured out exactly where the lines met. This is simple math, but it happens thousands of times per second. A track appeared on the Russian screens. They knew the drone's position was accurate within 164 feet, and they were getting updates every 3 seconds. The Luty had no idea, and it probably would not have cared if it did. The drone had no warning system for sound because a device like that does not exist for small planes. The flight computer showed everything was normal and the target was locked in. Russia was tracking every move of a ghost that did not know it was already in trouble. It was now 41 miles to the target and 18 minutes to the end. There was still enough time if nothing else went wrong. The microphones could follow the drone, but they could not stop it. For that, Russia needed a real weapon. Blinded by the dirt. The defense was ready to fire, but they ran into a problem that no one expected. At 11:52, 5 minutes after the microphones found the drone, the data reached a missile battery. They were only 11 miles away from the drone, which is well within their reach. This missile system is Russia's short-range answer to this exact threat. It has 8 missiles and a radar that can watch 48 things at once. On paper, the Luti was already finished. The commander had the exact location from the microphone network. He turned his radar to the right spot and searched the sky. He found nothing. He had the location, and his radar could usually see a bird from 15 miles away, but the screen was empty. The problem was the angle. The radar needs to look slightly up to work. If it looks too low, the ground reflects the waves and creates a mess on the screen. Radar waves bounce off the dirt and trees, creating fake echoes that the computer cannot filter out. The system was built for planes and helicopters that fly high. Nobody planned for a drone flying at only 98 feet. At 11 miles away, a drone that low is basically on the horizon. The radar was staring straight into the ground, and the drone was hidden in the mess. The commander tried to do the math, but the physics of the Earth were working against him. For his radar to see a target that low, the drone had to be within about 4,000 feet. At the speed it was going, the Luti would pass that window in only 24 seconds. He would have only one chance if the drone flew directly at him. But it was not. The Luti was heading northeast, passing in front of him instead of coming closer. He watched the sound data as it updated. The drone was getting closer, but the view was not getting any better. The drone would pass 2 miles north of his position and never enter the small window where his radar could see it. At 11:55, the microphone showed it was 7 miles away and moving fast. The radar still showed nothing but interference and frozen farmland. At 11:57, the drone passed by him completely. This drone flew under the radar, literally. It was now 29 miles to the target and 12 minutes to impact. The Luti had slipped past the microphones and the missiles through smart flying and simple physics. But something else had been hunting it since before it even reached the coast. The missile and the tractor. Something was already in the air, waiting for the right moment to strike. 24 miles to the west, another weapon was already flying. A Russian attack drone had launched earlier that morning. Russian orders were to keep these drones in the air whenever they thought a Ukrainian launch was happening. A Luti leaving the runway had triggered the alarm, but this was not a normal Russian attack drone. If you look at the top of the body, you will see a missile launcher bolted to the frame. Russia had turned a slow attack drone into a flying missile station. It was like duct taping a shotgun to a lawnmower. It was ugly and strange, but it was just smart enough to work. This Russian drone uses a piston engine that makes about 50 horsepower. It usually flies at 115 miles per hour and can stay up for 4 hours. But this one was carrying a heavy missile, which meant it could only stay up for 90 minutes. The operator was not just pressing a button to fire, he had to send commands through a network of other drones and stations. He had to open the cover, aim the drone, and then fire. By 11:47, the Luti had been flying for an hour. It only had 30 minutes of fuel left. The Russian drone had 1 missile and 1 target. The 2 drones were on a path to meet in the sky, and only one would survive. The Russian operator got the sound data and adjusted his course. He dropped down to about 2,000 feet and started searching. It was now 29 miles to the target, and time was running out for both sides. Finding a drone flying at 98 feet in a ditch is not easy. The missile needs to see heat against a cold background. Against the cold sky, a hot engine is easy to see from 4 miles away. But against the ground, everything changes. Frozen dirt and plowed fields create a messy thermal picture. The operator searched for 6 minutes. His camera showed frozen fields and bare trees. The microphone said the drone was nearby, but nearby is not enough to fire a missile. The Luti was approaching a ridge where it would have to climb. When it went up, everything would change. At 11:59, the flat land ended. The drone had to climb to clear the rising ground. It tried to stay low, but at 12:07 it hit a ridge it could not go around. The drone pulled up to 260 feet, crossed the ridge, and dove back down. For 3 seconds, its hot exhaust was clear against the gray sky. The Russian missile was away, screaming through the air at incredible speed. The operator saw the heat and acted fast. He opened the cover and aimed. The missile found the heat immediately. It was a real target, not a fake reflection. He fired the missile. It took off with 20 times the force of gravity. The Russian drone shook as the missile left. The missile was moving at over 1,800 miles per hour. It was only 11 seconds until it would hit the Luti. This missile does not just chase the target, it flies to where the target is going to be. It uses math to cut off the escape. The Luti had no way to defend itself. It had no flares or jammers. But it had something else. Just as the drone crossed the ridge, its computer told it to dive toward a stream bed to hide the noise of the engine. The drone was not trying to dodge the missile. It did not even know the missile was there. It was just a lucky coincidence. The missile held its lock and followed the drone down toward the ground. But the missile's fuse is very sensitive to metal. As it got close to the ground, it picked up a signal from an old abandoned tractor sitting in the mud. The missile exploded on the tractor instead of the drone. The Luti felt the shockwave but was not hurt. The operator watched the explosion on his screen. He had missed his only shot. The path was finally clear, but the most difficult task was still ahead. The Luti was now only 16 miles from the target. It had survived the microphones and the missile. Now it had to find one specific plane among dozens of others. Its digital brain had to pick out the right target. It had to find the IL-38N and ignore the regular planes parked only 80 yards away. If it hit the wrong one, the mission would be a failure. Both planes look almost the same. They both have 4 engines and look like big gray tubes. The only difference is a small box on top of the front of the plane. That box is a high-tech sensor used for spying on radio signals. That box was the target. If the drone destroyed that, Russia would lose its best hunter in the Black Sea. The drone's brain was trained using thousands of pictures. It learned to look for the shape of the engines and the wings first. Then it looked for that specific box on top. The computer draws a box around what it sees and measures it pixel by pixel. It asks itself how sure it is. In this case, it was 94% sure it found the right one. What do you think is the next target for these silent hunters? Could Russia even find a way to stop a ghost they cannot see or hear? Let us know in the comments, and hands down, make sure to like and subscribe for more.